What's up, guys? Welcome back to Babe and the Braids podcast. I'm Allison the Babe.
And I am Isaac the Braids.
So today our topic is long distance relationships, more specifically our relationship and how we've dealt with long distance, because we've been through some good times and been through some bad times.
Yeah, and the majority of our relationship has been long distance. I mean, like I said, we've been dating 5 years, and 4 of those years, 4.5 really, have been long distance. Now we've gotten gradually closer and closer over those 4 years, but it's pretty much all been long distance.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about because living with you now just feels so natural, but there was a time where we didn't see each other for months.
Yeah, but like I said, I think the fact that it was kind of like a gradual progression to bring us to the point where we are now. I mean, we started off super far from each other, relatively speaking, and then just inched our way closer and closer.
Closer and closer until now we sleep in the same exact bed. So, I mean, we're about as close as possible. But quickly before we talk about long distance, I do want to make a small little announcement that Isaac and I are going to be starting a segment in our podcast for advice. So you guys can write in your stories, your situations, whatever you guys want our perspective on, and you can write into Babe and the Braids podcast, and we'll start including a little segment here in the next few episodes.
I like that. I think that'll be good, like as a little intro.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know. I just want to get you guys more involved. And one of the main reasons we started this podcast is so we can help people in relationships. And yeah, so I'm excited.
Yeah. So just to start, we always, I guess, when we're trying to choose a topic, I guess what we ask ourselves is why? Why are we discussing long distance? And like I said, and like Allie said, we have a unique perspective with long distance. Both of us have pretty much spent the majority of our lives dating wise long distance, which is crazy.
Actually, all of my relationships at one point or another have been long distance.
So you're an expert.
Yeah, basically I'm an expert. I mean,
what a beast.
Only one of those relationships was successful, but yeah, I guess you can call me an expert in long distance relationships.
Are we or are we not considering this a success?
I mean, absolutely, I consider this a success because we are currently living together.
No, there's a lot of unsuccessful relationships living together, but we'll move on.
Whoa.
So here's the deal. When Allie and I first met, and I looked at her with her Timbs and the crop top and the leggings on, long distance was not even something we thought about. We were just kind of doing what people naturally do when they first meet. They have the natural attraction to start, and they get to know each other. And then afterwards, I think we both kind of realized, like, wait, this thing's going to be long distance.
Yeah, I don't think it really came into our minds until it started to make problems for our relationship. Like right off the bat, when we first started dating, we made plans like, oh, like I'll come and see you next weekend. Oh, I have a home game this weekend. Oh, like whatever. So there was like that natural progression of like, wait, we are in a long distance relationship. How are we going to handle this?
I think what helped for us, though, and then we'll get into more advice and, what we think about it. But I think what helped us initially, though, is the fact that I wasn't in season when I met you. It was the off season. So, well, that's not true. I was in season. What am I even talking about? We met in December. That's hilarious. You just agreed with me like, yeah.
No, but when we first started dating, it was like, you asked me to be your girlfriend on your bowl game night.
Yeah, so that was the last day of the season.
Yeah, so basically when we first started dating, you technically were not in season because I was your girlfriend, and then the next day you didn't have any football.
Right, and so we basically started dating, and then we were like, here's the lineup of times when we're going to come see each other. Because
in the beginning of our relationship, we were super excited. So we were always looking forward to the next time we were going to see each other. It wasn't like, oh, like I have to go and see him this weekend. It was more so like, I want to see him every weekend because we just started dating and we're like that in that puppy love phase.
Yeah. Like, so we met, like she said, we started dating the last day of my season. So that was like literally December 30th. Mm-hmm. And we went back home because we both had like a week off longer in our Christmas break. Mm-hmm. And then we came back to school, and literally the first weekend I went to see you.
You came to my apartment for the first time.
And that's when I met Gracie.
But as a quick background, Isaac and I, before we met each other, we were both in long distance relationships from high school. So I'm sure a lot of you who are listening now to this podcast can probably relate, because that's the most typical form of long distance, is going from high school to college. So we were both in relationships our freshman years with people we were dating in high school. So right off the bat, we both had experience, but it wasn't necessarily good experience.
Well, and it's just interesting because Allie was asking me before we clicked record, like, would you recommend relationships that are like high school relationships to continue dating into college?
I did ask that. Do you want to answer it now or later on?
So I kind of like aggressively gave like a no, you shouldn't. And the reason I said that is because I think like you are in a growing process, and especially with technology and stuff and being able to always communicate, you like really hinder your growth process if you go into a long distance relationship in college.
Yeah, I think there are positives and negatives. And I mean, once we talk about all the things we're going to be talking about in this podcast, we can revisit this topic at the end of the podcast. So if you're curious, you can, just keep on listening. It's complicated for sure, because I think a lot of relationships that go from high school to college are successful. Right. But me personally, I look at my boyfriend before you, and I look at you, and I changed so much. Not only was I dating somebody completely different from who you are, but I just feel like me as a person, that single part of my college life, I grew so much individually because I was on my own. I didn't have anybody to rely on. I didn't have anybody to answer to. And it was just kind of freeing. And I feel like I grew a lot in myself. And I was able to truly look at what I want versus like, I'm going to follow my boyfriend to this college because he wants to do this with his life and he needs to go to this college, so I need to follow him. So there's positives and negatives.
No doubt. I think there's positives and negatives, but I think Allie and I would both agree, and a lot of people would, and parents would, to the parents listening. It's just such a crucial point in your life. Like, I think back to when I was 18, first going to college, and like that 18-year-old to that 19-year-old are two totally different people.
It's crazy how fast you grow, and like looking back now, like who I was as a freshman in college, I'm so completely different, like night and day difference in a good way. Like I grew up in myself, and I view myself as independent now, whereas back then I was so dependent, right? And I didn't know what the hell I was doing most of the time. So it's just, I feel like in college is like the biggest growing period, because you are now, a lot of the time when you go off to college, you're no longer with your family, you're no longer with the friends you grew up with, and it's just a different experience where you really get to grow.
Yeah, and so the point that I think you're trying to make is not going into college in a relationship, in a long distance relationship, allowed you to really flourish and be the person you are today.
Yeah.
For me, I think it held me back. So I went into college and I was in a very intense relationship, and I think it really held back my social growth process. So I think we would both agree that, give yourself the space to grow up and learn more about yourself.
That doesn't necessarily mean you have to break up with your high school sweetheart, but definitely take a step back from talking every single day and being in constant communication, because if you're in constant communicate, like one of the problems in my first long distance relationship, the one from high school to college, was the fact that he got mad at me when there were like other boys in my dorm room, being boys that I wasn't even interested in. It hurt me because I couldn't become friends with some of the guys. And then I started missing out on college experiences because I felt like if I did this, I was going to be in a fight with my boyfriend from home, and it just wasn't worth it. So in that case, trust is so important in long distance relationships. Trust and communication.
No doubt. And it's complicated because I know there will be people to listen and be like, well, we dated and we were high school sweethearts and we're married. And it's like, it really is just person to person. But I think, and we were going to talk about this is a good little transition point. I think regardless of what the scenario is, if you do stay together, both people need to be okay with the distance. and what comes with that. And I think when Allie, and we'll jump back to where we were before we started talking about the high school to college, we entered the relationship, I think, understanding and being okay with what it meant to be in a long distance relationship.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, there are so many reasons as to why I was okay with the relationship, but the two most important things as to why I was okay entering a long distance relationship was, one, I fell for you so hard, and
that's deep.
I saw myself with you long term. So in the long run, I was like, long distance right now is definitely worth it. And the second point being, I think long distance actually has a lot of positives if you're in the right relationship. So when you and I first started dating, we immediately had that clean slate of trust and, you know, open communication. So it was kind of cool because I got to live two completely different lives, not in like I was one person with you and one person with my friends, but more so when I was with my friends, I was all in with my friends, and I got to spend like unlimited time with them. And on the weekends that I would come and visit you, it was all in with you and having a good time with you. So I felt like I was able to still grow as a person in and of myself. And then when I was with you, I was able to grow in our relationship.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like when I say being okay with long distance, I think you have to kind of like, I guess set up boundaries would be the word, but like you have to just come into it with an understanding that when I am not with you, yes, we are still dating, and yes, there will be communication, but I'm not with you. Mm-hmm. Like I still have to be present and in the moment with whatever I'm doing.
Exactly. So if I'm going out to the bar, you can't expect me to be texting you every single 10 minutes. Like, yeah, there has to be that trust, but you just have to trust that, like, when that person's out with their friends, you're still their boyfriend or girlfriend, and that doesn't mean they don't love you, but you have to allow that other person to have those type of experiences, because if not, it can be suffocating.
Don't get it twisted, though. I mean, Allie, we're putting this in a nice little pretty package, sending it off to the listeners, but
a pretty package, okay.
When boys first started dating, like, I personally really struggled with the, oh, I'm about to go out with my friends. Oh, like, I was like, wait, hold on, who are you going out with? Like, da-da-da-da. Like, I was kind of the complicated person in a relationship. So it sounds nice now. And what I always tell my friends is like, oh, that's the easy part, is listening to the advice. But when you're going through it, like, and Allie's like, hey, I'm going out with like my friends, it's super hard.
I completely forgot that you were ever like that.
Well, I was out of control. I was like, Allie, what are you doing? Who are you out with? Da-da-da-da-da.
But
I was kind of overbearing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, you kind of were. But it's interesting because I was open to not changing, but I was open to having the communication and the conversations. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and mute this. My apologies, people.
Are we serial?
No, but there was that point of our relationship where we grew together, and that you became more and more lenient and you started trusting me more.
Yeah. And we'll just keep going back to the umbrella point right now, which is you have to understand and be okay with the distance. Like, what I could have done better would have, I could have really like understood and accepted the fact that we were going to be long distance. Understand the fact that you still have to develop and grow and hang out with your friends and do your thing. I still have to do my thing. And that would have made it a little bit easier. So I think the advice piece would be, again, be okay with it and understand, like, okay, Allie's going to go out. She's going to have fun with her friends. She still thinks I'm the best looking person in the whole world. She's maybe she still loves me, and she's still going to, like, act right as a girlfriend. And
hopefully in most relationships, hopefully that is the case.
Exactly. And that's how we will, like, navigate through this long distance relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think what happened with us, and the reason we had issues, it's funny because we didn't even talk about this, but we definitely had issues early on with long distance.
I didn't even like
we
remember
didn't even talk
that.
about this. I think, like I said, I could have just done a better job just being like, look, I need to chill out because this is part of the process. And I think when we entered it, because we had came from these extreme long distance relationships, we didn't realize that 2 hours apart was still long distance. I think we kind of were just like, oh, we're basically at the same college. It's like, no, boy, we're still.
My boyfriend before you was an hour and a half away, so I wouldn't necessarily say that.
Well, mine was 12 hours, so maybe it was just me. But I think I just kind of thought it wasn't going to be a big deal. But then there were those times where we were both off on weekends and we were not together, and like I was not chill about it. Seems like it's a reoccurring theme on the show.
Yeah, geez, Isaac. No, I'm kidding. But it eventually got to that point where it was both, like, it was comfortable. And I mean, I would say about your senior year of college, it got to the point where you were okay with that I went out with my friends, and you kind of even like promoted it. Like, Allie, you should go to the bar. Like, you should go to Rick's. You should go to Harper's. I'm just naming off Michigan State bars. But it got to the point where you wanted me to still have a good time. You didn't want me to be sitting in my room waiting for a text message from you.
It's just so difficult because we have a unique relationship, and I think it's extra unique because I feel like I grew up so much in our relationship on so many different phases. Go listen to the religion podcast. Grew up, became way more open-minded with that, and that helped our relationship. There's other things, different views on different things specifically that we won't get into that I matured a lot on. And even with you going out, I was, like she's saying, at the end of it, I'm like, look, you need to go enjoy your friends. Mm-hmm. And I've caused a lot of issues.
Jeez.
I mean,
at least you're going to be open about it.
I've caused some issues. So that's the negative piece would be me causing issues. The positive piece to a long distance relationship, early on in our college careers would be the fact that, like she's saying, it was kind of nice being able to date somebody and have, like, I can always come home. And when I say home, I'm using that kind of as an example, come home to Allie, and I can still go and enjoy my friends, and I can, still like have a full college experience independent of her while dating her.
Yeah, I think that's honestly my favorite part about our relationship early on, because when I look back at college, I look at so many memories with my friends, so many memories with Isaac, and then so many friends with Isaac and my friends, and me and Isaac's friends. And it's my favorite part because a lot of my friends who had relationships in college and their boyfriend went to our same college ended up kind of being a little bit infatuated with their boyfriend to the point where they would stop hanging out with us and start hanging out with their boyfriend's friends. Whoa. And that's not a bad thing, but I just feel so lucky because I got the best of both worlds, and I got to hang out with my boyfriend for an entire weekend. And then when I would be at my college, I got to hang out with my friends for an entire weekend. And there was never like this obligation of, oh, I have to choose my boyfriend over my friends, or, oh, I have to choose my friends over my boyfriend. So when there was a big party at Michigan State, I would just say, oh, like, I'll go and visit Isaac next weekend. And when there was a home game at Notre Dame, I would say, oh, I'm going to go spend this weekend with Isaac. So I never really had, our cat is crying right now.
Gracie is going in right now.
No, but I never had to choose between my friends and my boyfriend. And I feel so lucky that I never had to, because I feel like that could have affected one of my relationships, either with my friends or my boyfriend.
Yeah. And I think the advice piece would be, look, date somebody that you can bring around the family and the friends, because and I don't want to just repeat what she said, but it's so much more convenient if the person you're dating can be chill with your friends, because then, like, you're definitely not sacrificing your college experience if you're long distance, because you're going to have weekends on your own and days on your own. But if they're cool with your friends, it's even better, because then when you are here, or you are at Notre Dame, when I'm at Notre Dame, we can all hang out together, you with my friends, and it's not like affecting my day-to-day college experience.
Yeah, I mean, my friends kind of fell in love with Isaac just because he's such an amazing guy, don't get me wrong, but he also, like, he gave us this opportunity to go out of our comfort zones, and okay.
Yeah, it's super distracting. What is she spazzing about? Oh, she needs to go to the bathroom, the door's closed.
Okay, where were we at? Because our cat just completely interrupted us. Isaac closed the door to the bathroom. So, but going off of that, Isaac gave me and my friends something cool to do. So my friends and I had a few times that we went to Notre Dame, and it was so much fun hanging out with a new group of guys and then, like, a new friend base. It was so much fun. And I feel like it brought my friends closer to me, and it brought my friends closer to you. So when Isaac would come to my college, Isaac and I wouldn't just sit cooped up in my apartment bedroom. we ended up going out with our friends and we would go out to breakfast together. And it ended up being such a great experience. And I'm not saying that wouldn't happen if Isaac went to my college, but I don't know.
Yeah, like I think you definitely, it's almost like we got two different college experiences.
That's how I feel.
Because Notre Dame is super fun, don't get me wrong, but the going out scene at Michigan State is about 40 times better than Notre Dame's. And I am super thankful that I dated somebody that went to a different college, because not only did I experience Notre Dame, but I was Grand Rivering it. Grand River is the street at Michigan State where all the bars are. But I got two different experiences, and when people say they are from Michigan or they went to Michigan State, I'm like, oh yeah, Rick's. And I always
have a little ownership, huh?
Yeah, I always bring something up with it.
Well, and I feel the same way, because some of the girls that Isaac's friends were friends with are now my friends. And actually, when Isaac just played the Bears a few weeks ago, I actually went to Chicago to visit some of the girls that went to Notre Dame and St. Mary's. So I don't know, I feel like so lucky because I had so many friends in college that I still talk to today, because it's like those two different groups. Yeah. And so like when Isaac and I get married and I look into all of the friends sitting at our wedding, it's our friends.
No doubt. I wanted to use a word, amalgamation is the word, which is a collection of fill in the blank. And that's what it is. We're going to look around and it's going to be a collection of, I learned that from one of my teammates with the Chargers, but shout out to Justin Jackson. But it's going to be a collection of a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different areas. So I guess the point though is, again, be open-minded going into the long distance relationship, because there's a lot of like fun and interesting experiences that you can have because of long distance. Mm-hmm. And what can happen that can be bad is like for you or for me, if I was, like we talked about how I had issues early on with you going out. Yeah. If I let that carry over into me coming to visit you, and then I come visit you and I'm just a salty Bubba Gump because I'm like, oh, whenever I'm not here, she's always going out with these people. Like I met guy friends that you hung out with and I was cool with them. Yeah,
he ended up becoming really close with my guy friends, which then helped. And like when I went out, everyone was like, oh, how's Isaac doing? But it all stems from our relationship being healthy. I mean, obviously you were in an unhealthy place when you didn't want me to go out. It's out of control. But then our relationship came to a point where it was healthy, and our relationship has never been unhealthy in that I ever thought you were holding me back from me hooking up with other guys. Right. So like that's a very important part of long distance relationships is you have to be happy with the person you're in a relationship with, and you have to not have that want to hook up with other people and meet other guys. And it can be tough because in long distance relationships, you don't necessarily get the attention that you may have if you're in a relationship that's not long distance. So you weren't telling me I was beautiful every single time you and I went out together, because half the time you didn't see me before I went out. So it's interesting in that like I didn't have that constant attention, but I understood that you always find me beautiful. You always, love me no matter what. And that you weren't at Notre Dame looking for another girl. You weren't looking at girls being like, oh, wow, she's really attractive.
Right.
Or at least I don't think so.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
That's just super interesting because that's a super girl's perspective. Like I was never about to go out with the fellas and be like, I was never like looking at myself like, I wish Allie was here to just tell me that I look cute. Like that's such a girl thing.
No, but it's crucial because especially in college when you're growing as a person, I don't know. I feel like, well, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for all the women out there, but I went through some insecurities in college more specifically, which I've talked about before, more so like acne and my weight and like working out and stuff. So I was self-conscious in that, but you always were bringing me up, even if it wasn't in person, it still was important to me. But it's weird because if I was in a relationship in person where like you were down the street, it would have been so different because I feel like if I was seeing you all the time and you weren't giving me that validation, maybe it would have affected me more. But because I didn't really see you that much, when you didn't tell me I was pretty every single conversation, it didn't really affect me because I'm like, this man's not here.
This man's literally 2.5 hours away. So we kind of want to also move on to this point of sacrifice, because I think that's another thing that needs to be established and understood early on at the beginning of a long distance relationship, because at the end of the day, somebody's going to always have to sacrifice if you're long distance.
Yeah. So it also goes back to being okay with the distance, but then you have to realize somebody's going to be having to sacrifice. Like
boys are going to have to, when I say boys, that's like a term that we use, like boys are tired or boys
I think they get it.
But at some point you're going to have to be like, all right, I'm not hanging out with my friends this weekend. Like there were definitely times where there was like super intense fun, I'm going to have FOMO when I'm gone, stuff going on at Notre Dame. And I was like, dang, I already told Allie I was going to come visit her. But just, like you listen to the way I said it, dang, I'm going to have to go visit her. Somebody's going to have to understand that, okay, I'm going to have to sacrifice. And yes, I still get to go see Allie. This is not that big of a deal. We're going to have a great time. Otherwise, you will be visiting the person and
you'll be holding against them.
Yeah, you're going to be salty. And it's like, how do you make a long distance relationship work? You might be listening and be like, I'm in a long distance relationship. I want to make it work. You have to be okay with walking away from
situations that are fun.
You gotta sacrifice. And I think that was one thing we both did a really good job of doing. There were times where I was in group chats where I was like, dang, I wish I was hanging out with you guys, but I was never with you regretting not being at school.
True. Yeah, I mean, that it all stems down to like you and I loved each other. And so when we looked at those situations, I feel like in the end, you're like, okay, I love this girl. And if I miss this one party, it's not going to make or break my college experience.
Right. Well, in some cases.
Unless it's a really good darty, then it might.
I'm like, in some cases it might. But it doesn't. No. It doesn't. And that's just what you're signing up for. I think it's just like anything. It's like, all right, you are long distance. At the end of the day, like there's going to be times where you're going to miss some stuff.
But I will say, I think I sacrificed a lot more than Isaac did, because as many of you know, Isaac played football in college, and with college football comes a lot of commitment, and he wasn't able to leave for 4 days. Whereas I was, because, my classes weren't on like Friday and Mondays. So I was able to see you a lot more, but I had to make the sacrifice that I'm leaving my friends and I'm coming down to see you. So there were points in our relationship where I kind of was struggling with that, because I saw myself sacrificing, and when I would come down to Notre Dame, I didn't necessarily even get to spend the full 4 days with you because you were at practice or you had to go to this tutoring session, or it was difficult for me because I saw it as I'm missing out with my friends, and then when I go to see Isaac, I don't even get to spend the whole time with him.
That's crazy. That's actually the first time that I've thought about it. You literally used to come down and would leave your friends and then not even see me.
I would go down to Notre Dame and be sitting in his house and be doing laundry and doing my homework, and he would come back after a 9-hour day and be like, so what do you want to do? And I'm just like, oh, I'm exhausted.
I mean, you would literally be sitting there for hours.
I mean, why do you think I ended up doing your laundry some days? Not because he asked me to do his laundry, but because I was like, it's sitting there, I'm not doing anything, might as well just do it.
It's just crazy. I'm like, actually, it's kind of hitting me. That's kind of intense. You were really out here sacrificing. The point is, she was super patient with it, because it can cause a lot of resentment in a relationship. That's the thing with long distance relationships. There's so many things that can force one person or the other person to be resentful. And if you would have let that affect you and you would have built up this resentment towards me, I don't even know if that's a word, but resentment.
Resentment is a word.
Okay. If you would have built up this resentment towards me, then it would have caused a lot of issues in our relationship. But the point that I'm trying to make is, one person at some point is going to have to be okay with sacrifice. If you're sacrificing, again, you can't be mad at the other person, because sometimes that you're really just sacrificing for the greater good of the relationship. Because you understand, I couldn't have came and saw you. And from my perspective, you need to understand that person is sacrificing. Now, that doesn't mean that, every time there's a decision to be made, you're going to get your way just because you're sacrificing so much.
I definitely argued that a lot of the time. I was like, I sacrifice all the time to come down here and see you, and gas money and whatever. But I feel like we found a happy medium. If I drove down to see you, we eventually started you would start getting my meals because you're like, okay, she is driving all the way down here. She's paying for gas. She's paying for food away from her home where it might have been cheaper. And we started, I mean, there was definitely a point where it was a little bit more difficult for me. And I kind of started to get mad at the fact that I'm always sacrificing, and I would start pointing it out more. So I wouldn't say there weren't times that we didn't do things my way because I was sacrificing, but eventually it evolved to that happy medium that like, okay, I am sacrificing, but he is also going to help me, where later on in a relationship, you started to help me with flights. We would split flights. You would get this flight. I would do this. So again, I feel like every podcast we just talk about this growing period where it's just so important that in relationships you have to be open to growing, and you have to realize not everything is going to be sunshine and rainbows, but you need to work through those rainy days to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I think it's just like you have to just like in all situations, and we'll be sitting here talking like we're just like the perfect couple, which I think Allie's perfect. I know I'm not perfect, meaning we're not the perfect relationship. But here's what I'm going to say. You have to, at some point, just step back from the situation and look at it objectively. And for Allie and that situation that I'm talking about with sacrificing, objectively, you say, okay, he can't leave. It's okay. We already said that. So just reiterating it. And for me, it's like she's sacrificing. I would be doing the same exact thing if I could. I don't need to feel bad that she's having to do this. And you know, if possible, like how can I make up for it and, you know, maybe sacrifice on my end more. And we definitely compromised a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and have us move on. And, you know, we made it through college, and I think college was like, for us, like navigating the long distance thing was pretty easy. Yeah,
when we were both in college, it was fairly easy because we came up with a game plan. We ended up seeing each other probably 2 times a month.
At least.
Which is, I mean, some of you were like, okay, that's not a true long distance relationship, but hold your judgment, people. We get it. It's not a super intense long distance relationship. There are people in other countries that you're dating, I'm sure. But for us, it was long distance in that we weren't down the street from each other. We weren't able to text each other saying, hey, do you want to grab dinner tonight?
No doubt. And I don't care what anybody says. It's long distance. I mean, like if you're
long distance is long distance, okay?
If you're not in the same city, I mean, or with, you know, like within a couple cities, you are long distance. Mm-hmm. Like we were in different states.
Yeah.
Barely.
But
I was 10 minutes from the Michigan border.
Yeah.
So, but the point that we're trying to make is that was easy. We made it work. And a lot of that has to do with Allie being perfect. And we moved on. I graduated in 2016. I took my last class and turned in my Portuguese exam. Bam. Allie still doesn't graduate.
Barely passed Portuguese. Shout out to his Portuguese professor for allowing him to graduate. Thank you.
Tudo bem. It's Portuguese for hi. But
that's all he knows.
And how are you? But I graduated in 2016. Allie.
Whoa, don't call me out. Come on.
Allison isn't going to graduate till 2018.
Whoa, you're saying she isn't going to graduate. Y'all, by this time, I have graduated. I've been in my full-time job for the past year. But yeah, I had a 5th year of college.
So she had a 5th year of college. So that's when long distance gets real. I'm going through the draft process. My agent's asking me, hey, where do you want to train? My options are Texas, Georgia, or Arizona. You guys can do the math on the flights. I go to Arizona, so our 3-hour, you know.
A 3-hour drive turned into a 5.5-hour flight, and that's if it's nonstop, which most of the time, unfortunately, it was not nonstop.
And with that comes time change, which is super difficult.
A lot more money, which is also super difficult.
A lot more money.
You both don't have a real job. Well, I kind of did, but you did not have a real job because you were just training.
And a lot more sacrifice. I mean, it's
on
like,
my part.
It's like, oh my gosh, we literally just went over this.
I'm sorry, but I'm just saying, like, Isaac was training for the NFL, and you all know the NFL is very cutthroat, and it's not easy to just make an NFL team. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go work out for 3 months and make the team. Like, being in the NFL takes a lot of perseverance, dedication. You have to eat right. You got to work out right. So
it's a grind.
I knew that he was going to be in Arizona, super focused. So of course, me being in college, my 5th year, and only taking, I think, like 10 credits, I knew I was going to have to sacrifice a lot of my time, money, and energy to come out and visit him.
And so that happens. We're going to give a quick little zoom through this. And then grinding, we managed to make it out of that period.
Which was extremely tough. Okay, guys, that was the first time at a real taste of an intense long distance relationship.
But just wait.
And that was tough.
Just wait, because then I
he
get
got drafted to the furthest team away from Michigan. Y'all, there was no team with a further flight. Isaac, I'm up in northern Michigan, or I guess in the middle of Michigan, but I'm up in the northern part of the United States, and Isaac gets drafted to the southernmost team. I think Texas might be the southernmost. Anyways, southernmost team in California. So it is the longest possible team from Michigan. Although I do want to say Isaac almost signed with the Chicago Bears and then he got drafted. So I was like, oh yes, Chicago. And then the phone call rings. We're all happy. I'm happy. I'm having a drink. And I'm like, oh shit.
Wait, were you thinking, like, I was about to sign with Chicago. Like, once you get to the end of the draft, you start, I mean, this might be juicy for some people, so I'll take 20 seconds to explain it. You start getting phone calls at the end of the draft, like, hey, if you don't get drafted, we still want to sign you in free agency. And so we had totally worked it out with Chicago.
They were about to send over the paperwork.
I mean, it was done. I was going to Chicago. Allie's probably like, wow, out of all places.
I was like, Chicago is literally a 3-hour drive from my college. This is so great. It'll be just like Notre Dame. Like, I was so hyped. There's a train. I could sit on the train, do my homework. Like, I had it all planned out. A train ticket, it's like, what, $60?
Big money.
And then the phone call, ring. Hey,
Tom Telesco. Do you want to be a Charger? And I'm like, boys, sign me up.
And I was like, shit.
That's crazy because I was so stressed during that whole process. Allie was there for me. All I was thinking about was what team is going to draft me.
Isaac was not thinking about his girlfriend.
I'm always thinking about you. So the point of this is then I end up in Southern California and Allie and I are still dating.
So when he got drafted, I had just finished my senior year and I was about to start my 5th year of college. I had to go to a 5th year because I changed my major like 30 times and I had to finish out some of my required classes to get my degree. So, I mean, I was very independent. I was like, I'm not just going to quit college and follow my NFL boyfriend because he's in the NFL. I also wouldn't have let
you. I would have been like, you're not doing that.
Horrible. But I knew, I was like, okay, we already did this Arizona thing. He's going to go out to the NFL. He's going to be super busy. It's going to work out because we've already been long distance. So I only had the best hope.
Well, it's just crazy to think about that literally I went to the furthest team possible.
The furthest team possible. And not only the furthest team, one of the most expensive places to go to. If you fly into Orange County, it's a very expensive flight, but I ended up flying to LAX most of the time. Anyways, moving on.
So we, we're like navigating through this. I think the first year.
Navigating through muddy waters.
It's muddy waters. The first year I ended up seeing you, quite a bit because I want to get to where it really got difficult for us long distance wise.
His first season, Isaac was so busy and I mean, he ended up getting put to practice squad. So he was so busy. He was stressed. He was focused on himself. So I knew how stressed Isaac was. And of course, at this point, we had been dating for 3 years. So I knew like, okay, I have to be super just like understanding of that he's super busy. I have to be understanding of his stress. I have to be his best friend and kind of the girlfriend part of me kind of took a back seat and I had to be his best friend because he was in a state he knew absolutely nobody. He literally had one friend in California and it was
James.
his best friend James, who was on the Chargers as well, but he only had one person. He was in a place where he didn't really know anything and immediately 2 weeks after he found out he was on the 53-man roster, he ended up getting cut and his salary got cut. So he was extremely stressed and all alone.
I was just salty. But I think the point with this as it pertains to long distance relationships is throughout that season, it was just like stressful and we got used to kind of just being long distance. Mm-hmm. And she would come and visit me every 3 or 4 weeks and we would have our little couple days together and then she would leave and then we just keep doing that, rinse and repeat. And I think we really did get into the lull of just FaceTiming, kind of doing our own thing, and just like being long distance. And I think we were like not very intentional on, you know, focusing on our relationship and challenging ourselves to grow even while being long distance.
Actually, it's interesting that you brought that up because in my head I was thinking about this. But when we would have arguments when I was in Michigan and you were in California, and then I would come out to visit you, those arguments still lingered and affected us and affected our time together. So if we had an argument like in California and I ended up leaving the next day, I feel like it affected us until I came to see you for the next time, and then we were able to like reconcile it. Because Isaac and I are when we argue, we just like to have a sit down conversation, and that isn't necessarily easy when you're how many miles? 2,000 miles away from each other?
Listen, she's sugarcoating it. You're stubborn and I'm stubborn. So when we argue, that boy can linger for a while because we're both
stubborn and you're more stubborn.
Well, either way, because we're both being complicated. And when you're doing that long distance and someone's not willing to be like, all right, let's not argue about this. Like, I love you, you love me, let's be done with this. It can be super difficult. So we kind of got into this, again, lull of being long distance, having arguments every once in a while. They would linger. And during the 4-month period of the season, I think we both really struggled with continuing to progress our relationship. So
it was hard to grow our relationship because I felt like whenever I saw him, we had to play like catch up, but he was still busy when I came up to see him. So it was extremely hard.
So
fast forward, his first season in the NFL ends.
It ends, and it is January.
And I'm still in college.
She's
I feel like I was in college for like half of my life.
So first thing that happened is her birthday, January 10th. Couldn't come out to visit her for that because I had some other obligations.
That was we got into a huge fight because I was like, I can't believe I'm alone on my birthday.
That was
also, let me remind you guys, all of my friends had graduated up until this point. I had a few select friends from like my program, but I didn't have any super close friends that like I could vent to them about me and Isaac fighting. So I was in a very dark place.
So that's one. And that kind of goes back to the sacrifice part.
Yeah, he missed my birthday.
Listen, if you are in a long distance relationship, specifically if you're in the NFL and you have 4 months where you cannot leave, when you have time off, like I should have went and visited you immediately. Even if I came back to California for what I had to do, I should have immediately flown to visit you because you had sacrificed. So whatever, didn't go see her for her birthday.
It's interesting because I feel like that affected me as well. Like, okay, I went and visited him literally these entire 4 months. I was the one to go and visit him. And then when he has free time, I wasn't his first thought. So immediately then I started resenting him because I'm like, okay, does he mean more to me than I mean to him? Which is like not healthy thinking, people. But it started to affect us a lot.
And then I finally am done with everything out here, all my obligations. And I go out to Michigan to visit Allie for a week at the end of January. And it doesn't go so well.
It actually went extremely horrible.
Yeah, it was really bad. And Allie and I, after that, ended up taking a break for a while.
Bum, bum, bum.
So, again, and I was because of long distance. I think, like I said, we got so accustomed to being long distance. We got together, we were arguing. And then it's like if you're arguing when you're together.
And you're arguing when you're apart. It's like, what is the point?
It's like we're literally always arguing.
And it was affecting our lives outside of our relationship.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, let's just take a break. So,
which was not an easy decision to come to because you guys got to realize, like, Isaac and I loved each other. We had been dating for this point three and a half years, like whatever.
We just had our 3 year. But
we were so in love with each other, and we were always fighting. So it just got so hard to look past the arguments and be like, no, you know what? I still love this person. We're only fighting because of our problems with distance. So eventually it was a mutual decision. We are going to take a few months away from each other and really just kind of decide, is this what we want to do? Like, take a break from each other, not to like hook up with other people and go crazy, but take a break from our relationship and, you know, kind of grow in ourselves and kind of start a clean slate, which I think was really important. And people are going to look at like taking a break. Some people might look at it as healthy, and some people might look at it as like, okay, you guys broke up for a reason. Why like go back to something that's broken? But again, we loved each other, and taking a break ended up being great.
So here's a real question though. It's like, well, I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to preface it by saying this. 4-month break. Allie ends up moving to California after her graduation because this was the best opportunity for her job. She's in interior design, and here's best place you can be. Comes out here. We end up getting back together. But
wait, hold on. I feel like you need to get a little bit more details.
Well, that's why I'm going to ask a question. For the people that are just long distance though, you know, like what is the advice for them? Because like it's tough because the first time we were truly long distance, we broke up.
Yikes.
You know what I mean? So it's like looking back, what could we have changed?
I don't know.
Seriously though, because I don't think
Grace is on my feet right now and she's warming them up. It's actually really adorable. That's our cat. Anyways, back to the podcast.
I mean, you're probably going to cut all this out. But
nope, not cutting that part out. Go ahead.
Okay. I think the thing is like, well, it's like, I'm getting distracted.
Okay, go ahead. I'll cut that out.
The thing is, what could we have done? I think we could have.
Yeah, tell me what you think.
Well, it's so tough because it was just such a gross time in our relationship and lives because I was so stressed.
Can we not refer to a part of a relationship as gross?
Ew.
Isaac.
But I think we could have just really, you know, focused on each other more. Like, I feel like I was entering every conversation completely selfishly, you know, like bringing my stress to the table and to the conversations. Mm-hmm. And
I agree. I mean, I'm not going to just harp on you too much, but I think you were going through a really stressful time in your career, and it affected our relationship because you were stressed about money. You were stressed about like, you know, training for the NFL still like between the season and off season. And I feel like it started to affect our relationship.
I think so too. And I think what you could have done better since I was the only one wrong. No, but I think you and I both could have done this better. I think we could have, you know, squashed arguments like way before they escalated to where they did.
I think we were both at like a really unhealthy place of like, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. And we weren't able to compromise. We were just extremely difficult at that point. And how could we have prevented that? I think we waited too long to take a break. And I think it would have been healthier if we were like, you know what? How about this weekend, you go hang out with your friends, I'm going to go hang out with my friends, like, and then on Monday we can talk about what we did, and it could be like a fresh little start.
Yeah, but I don't know if that actually works because I still, like, you were at that point still such a big part of my life that regardless of whether if we agreed to do that, I still would have called you. You know what I mean? Like, it's super hard to just be like, oh.
We got a stage 5 people.
It's super tough to be like, all right, take a weekend off. Like, boy, I would have still been like, hey, Allie, what's up?
I know, but maybe it would have prevented us from taking 4 months off.
Yeah, I think you almost have to just be at a healthy place where you're like, again, and we said this about when we were in college, a healthy place of, I know you love me, I love you. Like, let's not try to be overbearing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It is complicated. I think every relationship has to figure out what works for themselves. For us, bringing stress and complication into all our conversations definitely did not work. So during the 4-month break, we didn't talk at all. Yeah. Like at all.
No.
Nothing.
Well, I think after like 2 months, I ended up caving and I called you when you were in Paris.
Yeah, but it was just like a confirmation that we're still doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm just looking back because that was really hard for me because a lot of my friends weren't at college. I didn't have my best friend anymore, being you. That was really difficult. But I think that also allowed me to take a step back and realize I need to stop being so dependent on Isaac for my own happiness. And I need to start, looking at my hopes and my dreams and what I want to do for the rest of my life and not just follow my boyfriend wherever he goes.
So she did that. And
because I think it was a little closed-minded in that phase of my life, I kind of was just like, oh, Isaac will get drafted. I'll follow him wherever he gets drafted and I'll get a job there. So I just had to, I mean, when Isaac and I were broken up, that is when I started to search for jobs and I started to kind of realize like what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, we did talk during the 4 months that we took a break because we actually went to Bali.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
Which is going to look super fake. Now that when you watch the Bali videos, it's going to look super fake. Like we're pretending to be this perfect relationship. But Isaac and I went into that trip knowing, you know what, like we're going to go into this trip. Like we planned this trip a few months ago and we're just going to like see how it goes. And on that trip, we had a few arguments. And after the trip, we just realized, okay, maybe we should just continue to hold off until you graduate college.
Yeah, I mean...
And that wasn't like we didn't love each other anymore. I'm not going to defend myself because not everybody who watches or listens to this is going to understand. But I understand that like that Bali trip and like that time apart, that wasn't fake. It was just what we needed to do to grow our relationship.
Yeah, I don't think it was fake. I mean... The videos are great, though. You should go watch them to learn about Bali and Balinese culture.
I mean, I still had so much fun on that trip, but I think it made me realize, like, I think we still should continue this break because I just don't think we're ready to jump back into it yet because I'm still in college and we were in completely different places in our lives. And what's interesting and why I brought up the Bali trip in general is because when I came out to California because we were flying from LAX to Bali. And when I came out to California, we hadn't talked in like a month and a half.
You hadn't seen my apartment, like nothing. I had moved. Yeah. She didn't know, and you didn't know where I lived, nothing.
But going off of that, I asked him when I got here and I was like, hey, I need to borrow your car on Tuesday. And you were like, why? And I was like, I actually have a job interview. So you and I drove out to LA.
Oh my gosh,
and I had my job interview, and that's when I accepted my first job, which I'm currently still working at, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it took a lot of foresight on your part, but so we'll get into why I decided to get a job in LA, and I'm sure some of you are like, okay, you followed your boyfriend in California still. We will get into that a little bit later. So she ended up, I'm going to put this on here real quick. She ended up coming out here, and at that point, we still were kind of, yeah. Like,
when I moved out to California?
Yeah,
I guess I can say that stuff now. When I decided to look for jobs, I didn't only look at California. I looked at Texas. I looked at Arizona because my brother went to ASU, or he goes to ASU. I looked at California, Seattle, Colorado. I looked at places that weren't in Michigan because I knew in myself I was not going to grow as a person if I continued to live at home. That's not saying anything bad about my friends who are still living in our hometown. I just personally knew that like my career as an interior designer was not going to flourish as much as I wanted it to staying in my place because I wasn't interested in like office design or small homes. Like I wanted to be big as a designer. So
what a beast.
One of the places was LA, and I mean, the company I interviewed for, I was like, no way am I going to get this job. And I can't give you guys all the details because I've signed paperwork and I can't give you guys all the details.
Oh my gosh.
But they worked with really high.
Oh yeah, that's right.
High profile clients. And I was like, this is my dream. And so I wasn't going to let Isaac hold me back from getting that dream just because I didn't want people to judge me about following him to California. But I think it is important to note that when I got the job in LA, it was in Los Angeles, whereas Isaac was in Orange County. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the geographics, that's an hour away. So still, I was not following him, and I was not going to like be his shadow in California. I was moving to my own place. And really quickly, I'll just say this. When I moved to California, I got a roommate. I lived in Santa Monica. I was extremely independent. And at this point, we still had not decided to be boyfriend and girlfriend permanently. But we were really close, and we gradually talked. So take it away from there.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll kind of move on. It's like, it just kind of, we came back to square one and tried to like rekindle everything and like, you know, just like almost be a new relationship. Like if people ask, it's like, yeah, we've been dating 5 years. Like we include the little 4 month time that we took off.
Well, I think I include it because I'm like,
It was part of the journey.
I was not trying to find another person to spend my life with in those 4 months. I was focused on myself. If anything, I was in a relationship with myself. Whoa. So when we say 5 years, some of you might be like, okay, that's cheating. You haven't been together 5 years.
No, we have.
at least we can agree on that part.
So we try to go back to square one, and I think we when she moved here, it's like, all right, let's just be a normal couple. Let's see each other, like we were seeing each other every weekend.
Not really, not every weekend, but the important thing is that when I moved out here, you were not in season yet, and we were able to kind of start as a new couple, which you said a little bit earlier, like we had like a clean slate, but we were able to like start falling back in love with each other. And when we fell back in love with each other, I mean, it just felt so good and like so healthy. And because I had friends in California, so I wasn't relying on him for my happiness.
Right.
And I think it was just so healthy because you're like, oh, Allie has a job, Allie has friends, she has her own place. And I feel like we were able to focus on each other without any external factors pushing on us.
Yeah. And then basically what that turned into was just us doing that for a few months.
Yep. I lived in Santa Monica for 6 months with my roommate, Oksana. Shout out to you. She was I love her. She's
cool.
We're still really good friends.
And then she, her job was all over Southern California, and it made more sense for her to move to Orange County.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was actually starting to do a lot of homes down in San Diego. So Orange County is in the middle of those two. And I love Orange County more than I love Los Angeles. So when I had the opportunity to afford to live by myself and live in a place that I loved, I immediately took that and I moved to Irvine. But before I moved to Irvine, we sat down at dinner and we had a conversation about us moving in together. And at that point we decided we were not ready, and that was okay. We were getting to that point, but I think it was really healthy that I moved to Irvine, and I don't think that was a sacrifice because I think I got the better end of the deal. I was moving to California, or I was moving to Orange County. I don't see that being affected by me dating you, but it was a great stepping stone because I lived in Irvine in a studio apartment for 6 months. And then
and then we moved in together, just in short. But I think at that point we were not long distance. When she moved to Irvine, that's not long distance.
I don't even think when I lived in Santa Monica we were long distance, because I mean, like, it was like 40 minutes without traffic. I mean, with traffic it was like 3 hours. But I don't see that as long distance because we saw each other. Like, we could say what we had never said before. Hey, do you want to grab dinner tonight?
Right. And I think we're at the point now where we've went through our whole long distance journey. Mm-hmm. And I think we'll both, like we always end every podcast, why don't you just tell everybody what you've learned from long distance and what you would tell your 19-year-old self?
I mean, there are so many things I've learned from long distance. It's crazy. But I guess the overview is there are going to be tough times because of long distance, but you have to be open to the distance, and you have to have trust in your partner. You have to have open communication, and you have to believe that that person loves you. And you, like, even if you're not together right then and there, things are going to work out. If you both are wanting things to work out and you both are putting your all into the relationship, it can be a great thing. And all I can say about long distance is patience is key. There were times where I was like, dang, I just want to live with him already. But I had to take a step back and say, you know what? I'm going to be with him for the rest of my life. Don't push on something that you're not necessarily ready for just because you want to push on it. You just have to be patient. You have to be trustworthy. You have to have dedication in your relationship. And that's how I feel about it. I think long distance relationships can be good. I think they also have their negatives. But when I look back on our long distance relationship, the negatives don't come to mind, the positives do. So I look at college and I'm just like, we had such a good run in college. Yeah, it got kind of sketchy when we weren't in college anymore, but I think long distance can be healthy. And if you and your boyfriend are in a situation where he's about to go to college or you're about to go to college, it can work. You just have to be, you have to understand that you're not going to be in constant communication. And I actually think that because we were not long distance before our relationship, that helped our long distance relationship, because we had never known what it was like to have dinner, like ask each other to dinner. I think it was better for our relationship that we didn't even get a taste of that.
Yeah, we were little kids in a candy shop.
Yeah, but if you are about to enter a long distance relationship, it doesn't necessarily mean it can't work.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my piece of advice would be, it'd be a few different things.
There's so many things.
It'd be one, understand and be okay with the distance. Like, look, you're long distance. It is what it is. With that comes understanding, like we said, one person's at times going to have to sacrifice more than the other person. Okay, be okay with that. One person is going to be, doing things that the other person might not be super excited about. For instance, there were times where Allie was going out with her friends. I was a little salty. I need to be okay with that because she still has to grow for herself.
Salty bubblegum.
And then I think, like, understand what your boundaries are. And when I say that, I mean, like, I'm not a huge FaceTimer. Okay. So that might be, I love to FaceTime, but I'm not the type of dude who's going to sit there for 5 hours.
Every time you call somebody, you FaceTime them. So go ahead.
What I'm saying is, like, I don't want to sit on the phone for 2 hours at the end of the day FaceTiming. It's like these conversations get redundant. So that's what I'm saying. Like, understand who you are and what you're okay with in the relationship. Like, I also was not somebody who wanted to text all day. People are probably like, so you didn't want to communicate with your girlfriend?
So you didn't want to FaceTime, you didn't want to text. What did you want to do?
No, but what I'm saying is, like, if I don't want to text all day and I'm not communicating with Allie that I don't want to text all day, then she might become annoying because I'm like, she literally wants to text 24/7. So set up your boundaries and know who you are. And I think just trust the process. Like, know that at some point the long distance is going to come to an end. And lastly, if you don't want to be in a long distance relationship and you understand that, don't force it. You don't have to do anything. Like, be okay with getting out of a relationship that you don't want to be in.
And you never know. I mean, I've known couples who have been dating in high school. They each went to college. The long distance didn't work out. And then after college, they ended up getting back together. But just realize everything happens for a reason. I'm big on that. Everything is going to happen for a reason.
No doubt. And I think with that being said, here Allie and I are 5 years deep into this thing.
5 years minus 4 months, apparently.
We live together, and living together has been great. And we've learned a lot from being long distance.
We live 6 inches away from each other.
Literally. We've learned a lot from being long distance, and we're happy that we can share it with you. If you want to, and if you feel like you relate or you feel like you can learn something, go check out the other podcasts because they're pretty good. The interrelationship one is super interesting. That's something that
was just you meeting my parents. We have so many other things to talk about pertaining to being interracial.
And if you have suggestions, comment below because I mean, we're great at coming up with suggestions because Allie's super smart and I'm somewhat smart.
Definitely follow us on Instagram, guys, because I ask all the time, do you guys have any topics you want to hear from us? Do you guys have any situations? And if you guys want to send in your, something you want advice on from the both of us, from a guy and a girl's perspective, send that to babeandthebraidspodcast or just DM one of us.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I interrupted you and now people are going to comment, let him talk.
Yeah, I'm like, I literally was thinking that though. I'm like, I was actually thinking like, now I'm going to have to re-explain the whole point.
Oh my God, you're just giving people have been commenting.
I'm giving you your fire.
People have been commenting. They're like, oh my God, can she let him talk?
What I was going to say is,
I'm sorry, people.
What I was going to say is she's smart, I'm smart, but I mean, it helps if people suggest ideas. We have like a really big perspective, broad perspective because of what we've experienced, and we want to be able to, relate and help whoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. So with that being said, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you guys like this podcast, go and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Ooh. That'll help us out a ton. I'm trying to, push this podcast out into like the podcast world and not only have like my YouTube subscribers. I want everybody else to find it. So definitely go and leave us a review either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That helps. We're on every single platform that podcasts are available on. So go and listen to us anywhere.
With that being said, thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you like this podcast, and we look forward to you downloading our next one.
Bye.